Episode 2, To Go Boldly. Star Trek Federation Installation 9, or Desafet's Cat House. On our way to FI-9, I have decided it is as good a time as any to begin getting to know my crew. Jacobs, in addition to being a skilled engineer, has an excellent command of not only the Kzinti language, but several other common and lesser-known languages of the Alpha Quadrant. She is also very interested in learning all she can about Cation Kzinti culture, an interest I have let her know we share. I am surprised at the level of her knowledge of Cation culture, considering she is a human. Gerv is what humans would describe as a typical Tellarite, gruff, blunt, and all business. Excellent character traits for a first officer. However, as I have already found out, he's a bit sensitive about the human stereotype of a Tellarite. It will require a bit of effort and time to skin him. No, that's not correct. Confusing human sayings. To get under his skin, so to speak. A few days into our trip, I received a priority message from Starfleet Command. Due to the nature of the message, I feel a need to call a senior staff meeting. I am the last to enter the briefing room. As I do, the quiet discussions that have been going on abruptly cease. With all eyes on me, I begin. We need to make stop at Wrigley's pressure planet before continuing voyage. Gerv asks in words that the others are asking by clearing their throats. Shore leave already, sir? No, we have to pick up another crew member, I answer, handing him the pad with the information on it and waiting for his reaction. As his eyes widen, he manages to choke out, "This is a joke, right?" Overcome with curiosity, Jacobs grabs the pads from Gerv's hands. "No way," she exclaims. "What your comment, Doctor?" I ask Dr. Solar. Jacob hands the pad to my Vulcan chief medical officer, and after studying the information for a minute, she says, predictably, with a raised eyebrow, "Most illogical." Seeing the rising curiosity in the rest of the staff's eyes, I explain, "It would appear half Terran, half Mauran, ex-Borg drone has been assigned to Bastet." As all jaws drop, I continue more to myself than the others present. I do not remember requesting such creature. I do not remember commenting to someone that I was concerned about having Kzinti on station. They can be prone to violent outbursts, and at an average of 9 feet tall, they are difficult to control. "I figure a Borg can do that, eh?" Jacobs comments, reminding me that there are others present. "I expect he will need special accommodations," I say, remembering the briefings I have seen on the Borg on other Federation vessels. Addressing Jacobs, I continue, "I assume you and Doctor can handle whatever needed. I will contact the Chief Medical Officer aboard the Tina and have all of his data sent here," Dr. Solar promises. "Irony is pretty ironic," I comment with a line from one of my favorite 20th Century Earth DVDs, a line that illustrates how confusing Federation Standard, also called English, can be. "I hold Starfleet Borg Killer Medal. If there is nothing else," I conclude, "thank you." "More livestock," I hear Gerv grunt as he exits. I sit in a deserted briefing room for a long time after the meeting is over, pondering what I have gotten myself into. Before getting on with my duties, I decide it is time to visit my chief medical officer. As I make my way to sickbay, I try to recall the data in her Starfleet service record. Name, Solar. Sex, female. Race, Vulcan. Skill, doctor. She was aboard the USS Enterprise when it encountered the USS Bozeman near the Typhon Expanse, but she was not among the Enterprise's medical staff that I saw helping the Bozeman's crew understand and adjust to the fact that they had just been considered missing for 90 years. She later accepted the position of Chief Medical Officer on the USS Excalibur, NCC 26517, under the command of Captain Mackenzie Calhoun. Mate, Voltac. Vulcan, deceased. Kits 1, Zon. Half Vulcan, half Hermat. I thought her mate was a Vulcan. Well, it doesn't matter. I finish my mental review of the doctor and what I know of Vulcans in general as I reach the sickbay door. Remembering that Vulcans can read minds, I use my own ESP skills to bury the fact that I have been reviewing her Starfleet records deep in the far recesses of my mind. The door swoosh open. I step in and I'm almost run over by what at first glance seems to be a large, furless, canine-like creature dressed in some sort of costume. For a second I am stunned. I was aware humans would sometimes dress their animal companions in dresses or suits, but I was not aware that Vulcans would indulge in such illogical behavior. I then realized I'm not looking at a companion, but a Vulcanoid kit with oversized canine teeth. The pointed ears fooled me. I cannot get used to them on furless, human-looking-like creatures. "Zahn!" A voice calls from across the room, prompting the kit to retreat on all fours, as humans say, to a safe position behind the legs of the owner of the voice, Dr. Solar. "I hope my child has not injured you, Captain," she begins, adding, "Zahn can get a bit carried away during playtime." Playtime? One tends to forget, dealing with adult Vulcans, that they only don their unemotional mask as an adult. Vulcan kits are much the same as any other race in the galaxy. "Zahn, apologize to Commander de Civet," Solar instructs the wide-eyed kit. Instead, Zahn exclaims in a loud voice, "You are correct, Mommy. He does look like a Soleil." I see a decidedly un-Vulcan-like look wash over my chief medical officer's face, a look I have seen on many parents' face, a look that conveys the hope that the floor would open up and they would fall in. Trying to hide my amusement, I answer, "No harm done, Doctor." Then to Zahn, "It is logical I would look like a Soleil. After all, both our ancestors were feline in origin." Presently, Solar realizes the fact of my unusual visit and asks, "What can I do for you, Commander? Are you ill?" "No," I answer, continuing. "I am taking time while available to get to know my crew a bit better. For example, I was unaware you brought along your kit." "Kit?" Solar questions. "Oh yes, humanoids say child," I answer. "I didn't think Zahn would be a problem from what I understood the assignment to be," she defends. "I do not think there would be a problem either, but I should have been informed. That's exactly why I am meeting with all my crew individually," I explain. "Also, I'm concerned about our newest crew member. Have you had any experience with Borg technology?" "We're getting a Borg crew member," Zahn says with the excitement of a child. "He's not Borg any longer," I inform, to a somewhat disappointed Zahn. "No, but he still has Borg implants," Solar comments, adding, "I've had a little experience on the Enterprise assisting Dr. Crusher. I don't think his implants will pose a problem." "Good. That's what I like to hear. My crew filled with confidence," I say, adding, "If there are no other concerns, I will leave you two to resume playtime." "At the present time, I can't think of any," Solar answers. "Well, if any do come up, do not hesitate to bring them to my attention," I say as I begin to exit. Then, remembering Zahn, I add, "That applies to you as well, Zahn." He smiles slightly, baring his oversized canine teeth in a manner that if he had not been a humanoid could have been misconstrued as a gesture of aggression. I make a mental note to speak to all humanoid crew members about unconscious actions the Kazini might interpret the wrong way. A few days later, as we near our new destination, "Incoming message, Captain," my communication officer reports. "It's Mr. Disney. He says he is administrator of Wrigley's Pleasure Planet." "Put him on screen," I say, motioning to the main bridge viewing screen. "How soon are you going to get here?" the nervous little old man with a pencil-thin mustache on the screen demands. "We're about 20 minutes out," I answer, adding, owing to his appearance, "Is there a problem?" "Problem? Problem?" he shouts, almost adding in a whisper, "There's Borg on this planet." Considering the absence of any report to the contrary, I assume you are referring to 4 or 5, I ask. "Of course I am. How soon can you get that thing out of here? If it ever got out there were Borg here, it would ruin business," the human replies. I am slow to anger. I think any creature that possesses claws, fangs, and other natural built-in weapons capable of killing must be in control of himself at all times, but... "Here," I begin, loud enough for all on the bridge to hear as well. "That thing is a sentient being, Federation citizen, officer of Starfleet, and a member of my crew. I demand, that he be afforded all rights and privileges those things entitle him to. Anyone that do not that will have to answer to me. Is that clear?" I finish, curling my upper lip just enough to display my long, pointy canine teeth. A little taken back, Mr. Disney calms himself and tries to assure me that he meant no disrespect and he had not been aware of the situation. I finished my conversation by saying, "You quite a distance from Federation facility out here. It most possible that if you have problem, this vessel would be one of the first to answer your call. It also possible 4 or 5 would be aboard. Keep that in mind. Bastet out." I look around the bridge. I see I have given others something to think about as well. After we establish a standard orbit around the planetoid, I invite Jacobs and Dr. Slar to join me in the transporter room. As the Bastet's newest crew member finishes transporting, I greet him. "Welcome aboard, 4 or 5, or do you prefer Lou Rod? I am Commander DeSafet." "I prefer 4, sir," 4 or 5 answers as he steps down from the transporter pad. "This is my chief engineer," I inform, motioning to Jacobs. "And this is Bastet's chief medical officer." Motioning to Dr. Solar, 4 or 5 acknowledges each as I introduce them with a nod. "Please accompany Dr. Solar to sick bay," I instruct. "I'm not ill, sir," 4 or 5 protests. "I understand, but because of your unique physiology, I want her to examine you. If you require any special accommodations, please inform her," I explain, adding, "We'll talk later." With another nod, 4 or 5 follows Dr. Solar out of the transporter room. "Scary, eh?" Jacobs comments as she also exits. I look at the transporter chief as I exit, expecting a comment, but he maintains his businesslike demeanor. "Well, we are finally here. I do have to confess the sight of the Kazinti space station, a gigantic paw print floating in space, is very imposing. As we approach, Captain, sensors indicate a small vessel approaching from the direction of the Kazinti Patriarchy, tactical reports. "We are being hailed," he adds. "On screen, I order." A large, tiger-like feline image appears on the screen and begins to speak. "I am Security Chief. Do I have the honor of speaking to SEF Commander?" "I am Commander DeSafet," I answer. "Forgive me, DeSafet, Commander. I meant no dishonor to you," the Kazinti says. "That all right, Security Chief. Is there a problem?" I inquire. "There might be. I suggest no one beam over to Churagra 10 without me," Security Chief answers ominously. "Would you explain, please?" I ask. "Yes, of course, DeSafet, Commander. Forgive me. It has been told to me that there might be some protection devices still functioning on the station," he answers. "I understand, Security Chief. We will transport to the station at the same time as you. Thank you. Bastet out," I say. After we establish orbit, the Kazinti signals he is ready to transport over. Due to the possible danger, I am limiting the personnel that will beam over to an away team made up of Jacobs, 4 or 5, Dr. Solar, and myself. Gerv, in typical first officer style, wanted to lead the away team into possible danger in place of his captain, but I fear the gruff natural demeanor of a Tellarite and the volatile temper of a Kazinti will need a very slow introduction. We materialized in the station's control center a few seconds after Security Chief has. "No one move!" the Kazinti commands, swiping the air with his formidable-looking claws and making me glad 4 or 5 is here. As we all stand like statues, Security Chief rushes to the active console, presses a few buttons, and announces, "All is safe now." As the away team feels it is safe to move or even breathe, the first words out of Jacob's mouth is, "What is that smell?" "Most disagreeable," Dr. Solar adds, raising an eyebrow. I try to cover up what I know it is by saying, "The station abandoned a long time. Maybe some Kazinti prey was left on board and died." Unfortunately, Security Chief corrects me by saying, "No, DeSafet, Commander. Forgive me. It is the markings of the previous station commander." "Previous commander's markings? Ew, where?" Jacobs comments, looking around. Being a typical Kazinti, Security Chief does not answer or even pay attention to Jacobs because she's a female. However, when I re-ask her question, he answers, "Traditionally, the place of command is marked in the directions of the 4 breaths of the Great Fanged One. Hot, cold, fair, and foul." "Oh, north, south, east, and west on the compass," Jacobs interprets, much to the surprise of Security Chief, if I read his ears and eyes correctly. "You will have to mark over previous commander's marks before the station computer will recognize you," Security Chief informs. Fortunately, that not be necessary. I mean, Jacob's planning to refit station with Federation computers, correct? I say. Commander, we plan to use the Kazinti computer as a systems base, Jacobs announced. If needed, you prepared to replace the entire system, correct? I asked hopefully. I'm sorry, but we only brought enough equipment for interfacing. To replace the entire system, we would need a shipload of parts and 6 months' work, she informs, adding with a smirk growing on her furless face. If the computer needs you to mark the station, I'm afraid you'll have to do it. Doctor, you'll be able to help me with a problem, will you not? I questioned, growing a bit panically. In what way do you have in mind? The good doctor calmly inquires with a smirk, I swear, briefly crossing her face too. If we clean station thoroughly, I guess I can rub my paws over station, I say. I'm sorry, but that will not be enough, Deciphet Commander Security informs. Thinking of how I marked my special project, I question, but it worked for my Cassini patrol ship. That will work for the pilot of a small craft, but you, Deciphet Commander, are in charge of an entire Cassini space station, Security Chief exclaims with pride. But I am Cation. We do not, I begin. You are feline, Security Chief exclaims. We are the chosen rulers of the universe. Wherever those like us live among those like them, he motions to Dr. Solar and Jacobs. We are the hunters. They are the prey. Look at them. Sniff the air. Smell the fear. It is our right to... Forgive me, Deciphet Commander. I was overcome by the moment. Whoever decided to assign 4 of 5 to this mission, I owe them big. As Security Chief was at the height of his ramp, I saw that 4 of 5 was readying himself for whatever might come next. His claws were out, but not displayed, not to add to the volatile situation, and every muscle was tensed, ready to spring into action. That all right, Security Chief, I say, calmly, trying to soothe everyone. Do I have to mark the entire station? No, Deciphet Commander, although most Kazinti would. All that is required is that you mark the control center. Fine, let us get to work. As soon as control center is ready, I will do my duty, I order. As Jacobs begins her work, and 4 of 5, Dr. Slar and Security Chief head off to find their stations, I call Gerv and have him begin sending the rest of the station's crew over.